Thursday, March 2nd, 2017. Monaco 64, home of alternative economics and contrarian views. Today I'm going to do the summary for the March ALTA report or Webbot report by Clif of halfpasthuman.com. I highly recommend people buy this report. It comes once a month at the beginning of the month and it costs $15, which isn't a bad price. First of all, I'm going to talk about what predictive linguistics is, which is Clif High's technology, so to speak. I always get, new viewers, so I'd like to explain to them what this is all about. And I read here from the report. It says, predictive linguistics is the process of using computer software to aggregate vast amounts of written text from the internet by categories delineated by emotional content of the words. Predictive linguistics uses emotional qualifiers and quantifiers expressed as numeric values for each and all words, phrases discovered, filtered in the aggregation process. Over 80% of all the words gathered will be discarded for one or more reasons. So the Webbot spider is the thing that is sent to scour the internet for language. That's the Webbot. And he goes on to say, predictive linguistics works to predict future language about perhaps future events due to the nature of humans. It is my operating assumption, that's Clif High, that all humans are psychic, though the vast majority do not cultivate it as a skill and are likely unaware of it within themselves. And he goes on to say, in spite of this, universe and human nature has it that they leak prescient information out continuously in their choice of language. And he goes on to say, my software processing collects these leaks and aggregates them against a model of a timeline, and that information is provided in this report. So I'm not saying I believe 100% that we're all psychic, but I think it's interesting to consider it, have an open mind. So I'm going to start, this report is over 30 pages long, and I've picked out the parts that I thought was interesting. So it's not the whole thing, and it's just a summary. I can't read out the whole report. That wouldn't be fair, of course, to Clif High. So it starts with metadata, and he basically says the metadata is pointing to a change in language about officialdom or the elite, and it's pointing to new officialdom represented, and he says it's represented by the Trump administration. He also says Webbot detected the language change in early 2016, and that's what allowed them, the Webbot or Clif High, to predict the Trump victory. He says, though, that this change in officialdom, the people in charge of the U.S. or the system, is going to be an ongoing subject in the next 50 years. That's what the data set is indicating or forecasting. And he says as well that people who are aware of these changes that are going to happen in the next decades, they will adapt better. Those who are not and fight it will have a harder time in general. So now we go into planet changes. So let's see. He says, yet more signs of rampaging climate change are forecast as coming along to append the last of the warmist claims. These such a suggestion that shocking incidents with ice and snow in spring and in the northern hemisphere are to be part of a large reconsideration of the global warming claims by some very powerful social influencers. He says global warming agenda will be discredited, basically. Data sets showing that there's going to be a change in language from climate change into ice age. What else? He also goes on to say about California, noting the continuing rain in California and indeed all over the west coast of North America, it is not surprising to see so many references to inland seas showing up. And he goes on to say, we must note that the data sets have a big earthquake series ahead for North America over 2017 through 2020 that is indicated to cause a bowl into which will pour rivers that then becomes an inland sea. So I thought that was interesting. Let's continue here. He goes on to say, other new sets for Earth changes are filling with references to oceans and are repeatedly discussed new land subset. These sets are supported by heat source and continental and minerals, and other sets indicating that new volcanic vents on the ocean floor are going to be spewing so much material as to be creating islands and land masses faster than navies can catalog. He goes on to say towards the end of this section, yet more sets for Antarctica within the Terra entity are suggesting that the strange weather and new ice forms will be impacting the continent over 2017 through 2018. These are indicated to be participants within ice flows process such as icebergs are calving, while on the other side of the continent new ice masses will be forming. Most new ice masses are showing as floating. So that's the Earth changes. Now we go into global pop. So I'll read here in the beginning some interesting facts he says about the global population. He says, all humanity is showing in the longer term data. And longer term data are not like, it's not immediacy data, it's more like years and decades, right? Longer term data sets for impact of food prices and food availability. These sets are hinting that seismic activity as well as ice age developing conditions will be primary driving forces. The data sets have the combination of our previously discussed credit freeze being combined with bad rain, bad earthquakes, bad solar radiation, and other factors into a crushing of food supplies insofar as the prices are concerned. So, you know, this is not happening in the next few months. This is more in the next few years, decades, maybe decade and a half. And he goes on to say, though, in the shorter term data, other weather is also indicated to impact prices over 2017 and 2018 as the financial systems become stressed by both internal problems as well as external weather problems. These external weather problems are forecast as producing migrations and population relocation across Europe. These are indicated to occur over the next few years as the cold weather becomes much more intense. So let's see here. Yeah. Now we go on to the, there's another sector that he's put up here within global pop. It's called Global Gold Rush, which is quite interesting. And I read from the report, he says, within many areas of the global pop entity, there are numerous sets for gold rush. At first, the temptation is to report that on these within the individual subsets based on geographical locations, but the sheer number of the instance sets make this too time consuming. So he goes on to say the area is highlighted as the data sets are voluminously filled with references to gold and the many ways that humans will be attempting to obtain it. So now onto the pop war. Pop war. So he goes on to say the border countries within EU pop are indicated to be in the big squeeze over most of the rest of 2017 as USA deep state officialdom continues to attempt to put Russia into a box of their creation. The other part of the squeeze will come from a mass migration invasion over spring and summer. The data sets have 2017 as the year of the invasion of Europe. These sets would suggest that more men are going to try to move into, settle, or conquer, he guesses, Europe this year than in all the last 10 years combined. So, let's see what else has he got here about global pop war. Yeah, he goes on to say a striking amount of new data sets for pop war also have either directly held supporting sets for gold buying or have cross links over to the gold sets in their global pop and markets entity. These sets are all referencing an emotion-driven buying wave that will seemingly burst into flames in several EU countries, then move rapidly to first the UK pop and then over to USA pop. Note that there are many strongly supported sets for gold and women's uprising in Ireland pop. And it goes on to say that the gold buying wave sets are primarily centered on Europe. However, the second largest geographic reference is for London. Quite interesting there. So now we move on to Australia pop. He says, what is up with Australia pop? He says there's more data sets for yet more political bribery scandals are showing as frying careers and opening jails. I think he's talked about this before. It's to do with the real estate market as well. And it goes on to say data sets now accruing are suggesting that in spite of the crumbling confidence in government, the Australia pop dollar will be rising against the USA dollar and the Chinese currency. So that's Australia pop. Deutsche pop or German pop. He says, the largest areas of new growth for Deutsche pop are focusing on economic chaos. Says this economic chaos includes all levels of the German financial system as well as the industrial base. It is the industrial base being threatened that is indicated to bring out industrialists to oppose officialdom. It goes on to say these opposition forces are showing as participating within the political process until an unknown incident occurs, likely before the end of May, the result of which is showing as the breaking industrial base away from the political machinery. So I thought that was an important part of the Deutsche Pop. There's more in that section, but I thought that was the most interesting. Let's see now. Franco pop, or French for France. Well, he goes on to say here that the tendency of the Gauls to be warlike and threatening is about to resurface in a rather interesting way as the pop war. So that's, and he goes on to say, Franco pop is going to be experimenting with all manners of reactions to the upheaval within France and the French political system. These experiments are further described as being cast off rapidly as the political chaos moves faster than solutions can be tried. So, quite interesting. Franco pop. So now I'll move into, Italy pop. He goes on to say, under Italy pop, in general, the data has Italy pops starting to become Californian in their earthquake awareness. The data has new populist initiatives sprouting up like weeds over 2017 as a group of young leaders begin to make preparations that the government will not. What else? He goes on to say, talk about the finances. As had been forecast for so long, the Italian banking system is still being presented as the linchpin that causes the derivatives fall into the crevice. The data has Northern Italy Bank, once headed by a climber who made famous a local climbing area, as being the breaking point. These sets have the Italian banking system being so distressed in such a rapid fashion that they race to the government for relief. Not surprising. What else in Italy pop? Yeah, he goes on to say the Italian banking system hidden liability subsets are also supporting sets for lira and return of sovereignty. So that maybe the Italians are going to leave the euro currency and reinstate the lira, their previous currency. What else now? Scandinavia pop or Scandi pop. He goes on to say the continuing expression of pop war in Sweden is but one of many points of outbreaks of open violence as model spaces move through the last of winter and into early spring 2017. The pop war sets have the violence being instigated by invaders. This is going to prove to be a mistake, as the invaders in several areas in Sweden are forecast to be surrounded and set upon by mobs of indigenous populations. I think that's the most interesting part of that Scandi pop section. There's more to it, but as I said, this is just a summary of the parts that I think are more important. Well, let's see. South America pop. He goes on to say that data sets have South America pop being motivated by strange weather and intense freezing into new forms of agriculture, and as traditional crops being to be hard pressed by challenging weather conditions. He goes on to say extreme weather conditions are indicated for the coasts, especially the southeastern coast of South America. So a lot about the weather there. So now I'll move into the USA pop, which is by far the biggest section. And I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna give you the summary of the parts that to me are the most interesting. He goes on to say, though, in the first paragraph, as many as may be expected, the data sets for USA pop are growing both widely and wildly. The rising memes within USA pop are much more numerous and much more voluminous than seen in all of last year. In these terms of emotional sums, we are already beyond the collective emotive sum for both release and build intention languages peaks seen in 2011 with the peaks of the silver market. So that's what he's seeing broadly for USA pop. Let's see here, more in the USA pop. Oh yeah, to do with gold, because we follow the gold market on my channel, it says there are new sets for more gold panning and gold finding and gold prospecting and gold theft for 2017 all across the subsets for USA pop. Many of these are still showing up as tied to disasters that will expose and potential. These are sets for penning pools that will be both specific gold penning places but also cooperative penning efforts. These latter sets are the continuation of the longer-term sets discussed in previous ALTA reports about subdivisions that will become gold penning centers. Many of these sets are dominated by California and Nevada geographic references. Let's see. He goes on to say about USA pop, the chaos language that grows over March and April, then dampens down over May, is indicated to begin within a markets problem. These sets are showing that the initial problem within the electronic markets in March will precipitate political dueling. So that's a bit more, a little bit about the markets there. He goes on to say the primary supporting sets for US SAPOP are growing new supporting subsets for both battlefield or warring emotional frame of mind within the population in general, as well as the ebullient enthusiasm of the flush of winning. This is from top level supporting sets that are showing that a long period of repression, once finally lifted, brings about a time of incredulity in which belief in future potential is thrown wide open. So he goes on to say, these sets are suggesting that our previously forecast Americana revival is going to be writ large across the national consciousness in ways never before witnessed. That's interesting, I think, you know. Let's see here. He goes on to say a little bit about California. Other financial problems from the flooding in California are forecast to include banking assets collapse as thousands of properties, including houses and commercial buildings and production facilities, growing lands, are hit by disaster. Interesting. So, he also talks about the college system in the US. He says the data sets have the USA college system begin to implode. Many of these sets have the professors being under pressures by the administration's staff at almost all colleges and universities due to the crashing student class base. These sets are arguing that students are going to be in short supply over 2017 as many major means within society conjunct this year. These sets include increasing difficulties to obtain student loans. So now we move into the market section. Let's see. He goes on to say the dollar woes are showing as growing over the chaotic crisis period that is indicated to form up storm-like over March, so this month, and then rain down the crisis over April and May. Excuse me. These sets are indicating that the setup for hyperinflation forecast for summer northern hemisphere and later in this year emerges from the derivatives burn in the background of the currency crisis. He goes on to say, noting that the dollar woes are going to escalate over 2017, the data is also showing lots of incredulity as the dollar rises relative to other currencies, which are also all showing as being in crisis. The incredulity sets are also supporting both the Bitcoin prices and precious metal prices over 2017. These sets for incredulity appear first during the escalating political and currency crisis of March and grow steadily throughout April, then burst out in May. So I thought that was very interesting. So let's continue here. I'm just picking out, of course, the parts that are more interesting to me. He goes on to say about the bond markets. The data has the bond crisis, which seems to be more a crisis for USA Federal Reserve than others, escalating over March through May, along with the rest of the fiscal chaos. These chaos sets are pointing to derivatives consumption or burning in the background of the currency crisis that will be itself escalating across the rest of 2017 from early March onward. And he goes on to say the derivatives meltdown sets are pointing towards social chaos within Europe as being the prompt for financial freakout by corporations and banks. These sets are cross-linked to the bank robber attempt sets as a temporal marker of note. So let's see here. Just to conclude here on the markets section. He says, as model spaces move forward in 2017 and during the chaos period of March through May, the data accrues for Bitcoin to become more costly than gold, well, we're pretty close right now. As this transition takes place, the data sets have it being a temporal marker for many other sets, including silver and precious technologies from Antarctica. These sets have strange occurrences developing as nations and central banks begin to buy Bitcoin. These sets are providing the propellant for the rush through 1,448 in US dollars on its way to $2,300. That's for Bitcoin. He goes on to say, as the gold falls behind Bitcoin forecast manifest, it is also a temporal marker for new ideas from Antarctica. So it looks like Bitcoin is going to be doing well, and precious metals, but maybe not as well as Bitcoin in the beginning. Let's see. Oh yeah, about the war on cash. He says, the war on cash language is dropping off in its emotional sums, and the data growth patterns are favoring an interpretation of a fading idea as the backlash into cash starts to appear in small countries across regions of the globe. The data has the backlash putting more emotional value into cash, precious metals, and Bitcoin being a reaction to avoid within the populations. The data has the central banksters discussing this backlash and how to control the increasing emotional attachment to all forms of physical money. Very interesting. So yeah, that's the market section. So the conclusion that Clif comes to, he calls it inertia snaps. And basically he's saying that after 70 years of the deep state, controlling the U.S. and also raping it financially, people are going to start snapping. They're starting to wake up and realize that trillions of dollars have been funneled by the secret government or deep state. And that's not surprising because if you remember before 9/11 on September 10th, 2001, Rumsfeld said that I think the Pentagon was missing $2 or $3 trillion. And then the next day 9/11 happened and no one ever talked about that anymore. So that's it. That's the ALTA or WebBot report for March 2017, and that is my summary. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. Share my video far and wide. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet. And if you would like to donate to my channel, there's some links below in the description. Thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.